The crack of a gavel split the autumn air of Golden, Colorado, as Olivia Lancaster clutched her 3-month-old daughter to her breast, milk still leaking through her threadbare dress, while rough hands pushed her onto the wooden auction platform. It was 1876, and the West was supposed to be a place of new beginnings, not a place where a young widow could be sold to pay her late husband's debts. Next up, gentlemen, a healthy young woman, not yet 21 and still nursing. 2 for the price of 1. The auctioneer's voice boomed across the dusty square as Olivia trembled, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked face. She'd arrived in Colorado only 6 months prior with her husband Thomas, full of dreams and hope. Now he was dead from typhoid, his gambling debts discovered, and their small homestead claim seized. $5. Someone shouted from the crowd. 10, came another voice. Olivia pressed her baby closer, feeling the infant's hungry mouth seeking through the fabric. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. The shame of standing before these men, being assessed like cattle, was nearly unbearable, but worse was the terror of being separated from little Emma. $50. The bid silenced the crowd. A tall man stepped forward, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Unlike the others, he wasn't leering. His stance was rigid, shoulders square beneath a worn leather vest. Going once, going twice. Sold to Mr. Ambrose Redfield. Olivia's knees nearly buckled as the auctioneer grabbed her arm and pulled her down the steps. The baby whimpered, disturbed by the sudden movement. "Please," Olivia whispered as she was handed over to the stranger. "Please don't separate us." Ambrose Redfield's weathered face remained impassive as he studied her. His eyes, a startling blue against sun-darkened skin, moved from her face to the infant. Then he spoke, his voice low and surprisingly gentle. "I'll keep you both safe forever, madam. You have my word." He removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders, shielding her from the prying eyes of disappointed bidders. With a firm hand at the small of her back, he guided her toward a wagon at the edge of town. "My ranch is half a day's ride from here," he explained, helping her climb onto the bench. "You'll have your own room, the baby too." Olivia sat stiffly, fear and confusion warring within her. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why would you buy a woman with a baby? What will you expect of me?" Ambrose secured the reins and climbed up beside her. "I need help running the house." Nothing more. His gaze remained fixed on the road ahead. "My sister passed last winter. She kept things in order. I've made a mess of it since." Relief washed over Olivia, but suspicion quickly followed. Men didn't spend $50 for a housekeeper, not in Golden, Colorado. "You paid too much," she said softly, his lips twitched. "Maybe," he glanced at the baby. "What's her name?" "Emma. Pretty name." He clicked his tongue and the horses began to move. "There's food in the sack behind you if you're hungry." Olivia reached back with one hand, keeping Emma secure with the other, and found a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside was bread, cheese, and dried apple slices. Her stomach growled audibly, and heat rose to her cheeks. She couldn't remember when she'd last eaten a proper meal. "Go on," Ambrose encouraged. "You need your strength. For the baby." As they left Golden behind, Olivia ate ravenously while feeding Emma. The rhythm of the wagon and the gentle swaying lulled the infant to sleep. Olivia studied her rescuer, or perhaps her new captor, from beneath lowered lashes. Ambrose Redfield was not what she'd expected. He wasn't young, perhaps 35, but neither was he old. His hands on the reins were strong and calloused, his profile sharp and defined. A scar ran from his right temple into his hairline, and his beard was neatly trimmed, unlike many of the wild, unkempt men she'd encountered in town. "How did you come to be on that auction block?" he asked suddenly. Olivia stiffened. My husband died 3 months ago. Typhoid. I didn't know about his debts until the creditors came. They took everything. And your family, back east, Philadelphia, she swallowed hard. They disowned me when I married Thomas. He wasn't suitable. Ambrose nodded as if he understood everything she wasn't saying. Well, Miss Lancaster, I reckon we all deserve second chances out here. The landscape changed as they traveled, the flat plains giving way to rolling foothills. Aspens trembled with golden leaves against the backdrop of distant mountains. It's beautiful, Olivia murmured, despite herself. It is. That's why I stayed. Came out for the gold rush in '59, found something better than gold. Land, peace. He glanced at her. Most days, anyway. As the sun began its descent toward the mountains, a ranch came into view. It wasn't grand, a modest 2-story house with a wide porch, a barn, and several outbuildings. A split-rail fence enclosed a corral where several horses grazed. It's not much, Ambrose said, almost apologetically, but it's mine. Paid for. No debts. The last words hung between them, and Olivia felt a flash of resentment, followed quickly by shame. It wasn't this man's fault that Thomas had gambled away their future. It looks wonderful, she said sincerely. He helped her down from the wagon, careful not to disturb Emma. Let me show you to your room. You can rest while I see to the horses and bring in your things. He paused. Do you have any things? Olivia shook her head. They took everything except what we're wearing. Something flashed in his eyes, anger perhaps, but not directed at her. We'll manage. My sister's clothes might fit you, and there are some baby things in the attic. From when? He stopped, then simply said, from before. The house was larger inside than it appeared from the outside. The front door opened into a spacious living area with a stone fireplace. A kitchen stood to the right, with a large wooden table at its center. Stairs led to the second floor, where Ambrose showed her to a corner bedroom with windows facing both east and south. This was Rebecca's room, my sister's. The washroom is down the hall. There's a cradle in the next room we can bring in. The room was simply furnished but clean, with a 4-poster bed covered in a patchwork quilt, a chest of drawers, and a small writing desk. A rocking chair sat in the corner by the window. Thank you, Olivia said, feeling overwhelmed by his kindness. I'll fetch water for a bath if you'd like. You must be tired from everything. She nodded, suddenly aware of how filthy she felt. How long had it been since she'd had a proper bath? The creditors had shut off the water to their tiny house weeks ago. That would be wonderful. True to his word, Ambrose brought up buckets of heated water and filled a copper tub in the washroom. He left clean towels and a bar of lavender soap, then disappeared downstairs. Olivia listened to his footsteps retreating before she dared to undress, placing Emma in the center of the big bed surrounded by pillows so she couldn't roll. The bath was heaven. She scrubbed away weeks of grime and fear, washing her long auburn hair until it squeaked between her fingers. The lavender scent was delicate and feminine, incongruous with her impression of this bachelor rancher. Another remnant of his sister, she supposed. When she emerged, she found clean clothes laid outside the door, a simple blue calico dress that was slightly too large but clean and whole, unlike her tattered garment. There were even fresh undergarments, still with store creases in them, and soft leather slippers. Dressed and feeling human again, Olivia returned to the bedroom where Emma was just beginning to stir. She nursed the baby, marveling at how much had changed in the span of a single day. This morning, she'd awakened in the town jail, where she'd spent the night after being seized by the creditors. Now she sat in a clean, warm room with a full stomach, her baby safe in her arms. But what would tomorrow bring? What did this quiet cowboy truly want from her? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Miss Lancaster, supper's ready if you're feeling up to coming down." "Yes, thank you." "We'll be right there." Downstairs, Ambrose had set the table with a simple but hearty meal: roasted chicken, potatoes, and green beans. There was fresh bread, too, its aroma filling the kitchen. "You cooked all this?" Olivia asked, genuinely surprised. "I'm not completely helpless," he replied with the hint of a smile. "Been fending for myself since Becca died." He pulled out a chair for her. "Though I admit, I'm a better rancher than cook." Olivia settled Emma in her lap and ate one-handed, a skill she'd perfected over the past months. The food was good, plain but well prepared. Ambrose ate quietly, occasionally glancing at them but never staring. His manners were refined for a cowboy, Olivia noticed. "How long have you had this ranch?" she asked, breaking the silence. 15 years. Started with 20 acres and a shack. Now it's 200 acres. 800 head of cattle, not the biggest spread, but it's good land. And you run it alone?" "I have 2 hired hands who live in the bunkhouse by the barn. Jed and Silas. Good men. They handle the cattle mostly. I train horses too, that's my preference." "Got a knack for the stubborn ones." Olivia nodded, sensing there was much he wasn't saying. "And your sister lived with you?" His face clouded briefly. "Becca came out 5 years ago after her husband was killed in a mining accident over in Central City. She had a young son, Henry. They lived here until—" He set down his fork. "There was an influenza outbreak last winter, took them both within a week of each other. Henry was just 6. "I'm so sorry," Olivia whispered, understanding now why he'd mentioned baby things in the attic and why he might have been moved to help a young mother. Ambrose cleared his throat. "It's been difficult without them. House feels empty, too quiet." He looked at Emma, who was contentedly gumming her own fist. "It's nice to hear a child again." After dinner, Ambrose showed Olivia around the rest of the house. There was a small library filled with books, more than she'd expected to find on a ranch. A parlor with an upright piano. A study where he kept the ranch accounts. "Rebecca taught school in town 2 days a week," he explained. "She believed in education, said it was the future out here, not just cattle and horses. She sounds like a remarkable woman." She was. His voice carried such loss that Olivia's heart ached for him. That night, after settling Emma in the cradle Ambrose had brought from the next room, Olivia stood by the window, watching the moon rise over the distant mountains. The day's events washed over her in waves: the humiliation of the auction, the terror of what might have happened, and the unexpected rescue by this solemn cowboy. She couldn't quite believe her good fortune, yet caution tempered her relief. Men could change, could reveal different faces once you were in their power. Thomas had taught her that bitter lesson. Beneath her window, she saw Ambrose walking toward the barn, a lantern swinging in his hand. His tall figure moved with the easy grace of a man comfortable in his own skin and surroundings. He didn't strike her as cruel or deceptive, but then, Thomas hadn't seemed that way at first either. "We'll be careful, Emma," she whispered to her sleeping daughter. "We'll be grateful but careful." Days passed, settling into a rhythm. Olivia took over the household duties with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt since Thomas fell ill. The house was sturdy and well-built but needed a woman's touch. She cleaned and organized, airing out rooms that had been closed since Rebecca's death. She found joy in simple tasks: baking bread in the big oven, hanging laundry in the Colorado sunshine, tending the kitchen garden that had gone wild in the past year. Ambrose was often out from dawn until dusk, working with his hired hands or training horses in the corral. But he always returned for meals, cleaned up and respectful, his manner unfailingly polite. He never entered her room, never made inappropriate comments or gestures. If anything, he seemed almost shy around her, as if unsure how to behave with a young woman in his home. In the evenings, they would sit in the parlor, Olivia sewing or mending while Ambrose read aloud from one of his many books. His deep voice gave life to the words of Dickens, Twain, and Shakespeare. Emma would lay on a blanket between them, kicking her legs and cooing. A week after her arrival, Olivia found the courage to ask the question that had been burning in her mind. They were sitting on the porch after supper, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. Emma was asleep inside, giving Olivia a rare moment of freedom. "Mr. Redfield," she began. "Ambrose, please," he interrupted gently. "After all, we share a home now." "Ambrose," she conceded, "I need to know. What exactly am I to you? You paid a considerable sum for me at that auction. Surely you expect more than just housekeeping in return." He was silent so long that she feared she'd angered him. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured. "What I expect, Miss Lancaster, Olivia," she offered. A slight smile touched his lips. "What I expect, Olivia, is to provide you and Emma a safe home for as long as you wish to stay. I bought you, yes, but I don't own you. I never will." He leaned forward in his chair, elbows on his knees. "I've seen how women can be treated out here. When I saw you on that platform, holding your baby, looking so frightened." He shook his head. "I couldn't walk past, couldn't let those men." "Well, you know what some of them intended." A shudder ran through her at the memory of the leering faces, the crude comments. "As for why I need you here," he continued, "I told you the truth. This place needs a woman's hand. I'm making a mess of things Becca always handled. And yes, I miss having family around." He looked out at the darkening landscape. "I'm not looking for a wife, Olivia. Lost that chance years ago. But I'd be honored if you and Emma would consider this your home. In time, maybe you'll even consider me a friend. And if I want to leave someday, then I'll help you get wherever you want to go, with money enough to start fresh." Tears pricked behind her eyes at his unexpected generosity. "Why would you do all this for strangers?" Ambrose was quiet again, contemplating the twilight. "Because someone once did the same for me. When I was at my lowest. Sometimes a single act of kindness can save a life." Over the following weeks, Olivia learned more about her benefactor. Ambrose had come to Colorado as a young man of 19, chasing gold like thousands of others. Unlike most, he'd been smart enough to recognize that the real fortune lay in providing for the miners raising cattle and horses to feed and transport them. He was respected in the community, she discovered when they rode into town for supplies. Men nodded to him with deference, women smiled warmly. If there were whispers about the young woman and baby he'd brought to his ranch, no one dared voice them in his presence. In Golden, he bought her fabric for new dresses, toys for Emma, books for herself. He never questioned her choices or complained about the cost. When she protested that it was too much, he simply said, "You've turned a house back into a home. It's worth every penny." As autumn deepened toward winter, Olivia found herself watching for Ambrose's return each evening, enjoying their conversations, appreciating his quiet strength and unexpected gentleness with Emma. The baby had taken to him completely, reaching for him whenever he entered a room, giggling when he bounced her on his knee. "She's getting so big," he remarked one evening as Emma pulled herself up on his fingers, testing her wobbly legs. "Soon she'll be running all over the place." "Too soon," Olivia agreed, watching them with a strange tightness in her chest. It was becoming harder to remember that this wasn't really her home, that Ambrose wasn't really her family, that this arrangement, however pleasant, was temporary. The first snow came in November, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. Olivia woke to find Emma already gone from her cradle. Alarmed, she hurried downstairs to find Ambrose by the fireplace, holding the baby up to see out the window at the transformed world. "Look, little one," he was saying softly. "Your first snow next year will build you a snowman. Next year." The words echoed in Olivia's mind as she watched them, unobserved. He was planning a future with them in it. The realization sent an unexpected warmth through her veins. "Good morning," she said, making her presence known. Ambrose turned, a rare full smile lighting his face. "We've been watching the deer." A whole family came right up to the porch. Olivia joined them at the window, standing close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Emma reached for her, and as Ambrose passed the baby over, their hands touched. A jolt of awareness passed between them, and Olivia quickly stepped back. "I'll make breakfast," she said hurriedly. In the kitchen, as she prepared cornmeal mush and coffee, she tried to make sense of her reaction. It wasn't the first time they'd touched. He'd helped her down from wagons, passed her dishes, steadied her when she tripped on the porch steps. But this time felt different. This time, she'd noticed the strength in his hands, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the clean scent of soap and leather that always surrounded him. This was dangerous territory. She couldn't afford to develop feelings for Ambrose Redfield. No matter how kind he was, no matter how safe he made her feel, she couldn't forget that her presence in his home began with her being bought and sold. But as winter settled over the ranch, keeping them closer to the house and to each other, Olivia found it increasingly difficult to maintain emotional distance. There were long evenings by the fire, with Ambrose teaching her to play chess. Sunday afternoons when he would play the fiddle, filling the house with hauntingly beautiful melodies that he said his father had taught him in Kentucky. Mornings when they would work together in comfortable silence, he at his account books, she mending or preparing meals, Emma playing on a quilt between them. It was a life Olivia had never imagined possible after Thomas died, peaceful, secure, even happy. She began to smile more, to laugh at Ambrose's dry humor, to share stories of her childhood in Philadelphia. She told him about her family's disappointment when she'd chosen Thomas, a charming but penniless clerk, over the banker's son they'd selected for her. How they'd cut her off completely when she defied them, leaving her with no safety net when Thomas's true nature, his gambling, his drinking, emerged after they headed west. Ambrose listened without judgment, his eyes soft with understanding. In turn, he shared his own stories of working the gold fields until his hands bled, of nearly dying from exposure his first winter, of being taken in by an older rancher and his wife who taught him everything he knew about cattle and horses. "They saved my life," he told her. "Jim and Martha Hollister. They never had children of their own, treated me like a son." "What happened to them?" Olivia asked. "Jim died 10 years ago. Heart gave out while he was mending fence. Martha stayed on until she couldn't manage anymore, then sold me her half of the ranch and moved back to Illinois to live with her sister. She writes every month, sends presents at Christmas. They sound wonderful. They are." He stared into the fire. "Jim used to say that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who want you in their life so badly they'd do anything to keep you safe." His words hung in the air between them, laden with meaning that Olivia wasn't ready to examine too closely. As Christmas approached, the ranch took on a festive atmosphere. Ambrose brought in a pine tree from the foothills and set it up in the parlor. Together, they decorated it with ornaments Olivia found in the attic: delicate glass balls, wooden figures, paper stars that Rebecca had made with Henry. "She would have liked you," Ambrose said as Olivia carefully hung a small carved horse that Henry had painted. "Becca, I mean. She was always after me to find a good woman, settle down properly." Olivia's hands trembled slightly. "I would have liked to meet her." On Christmas Eve, after Emma was asleep, Ambrose surprised Olivia with a small package wrapped in brown paper and tied with red yarn. "It's not much," he said, suddenly awkward, "but I wanted you to have something of your own." Inside was a silver locket on a delicate chain. When she opened it, she found it empty, waiting for memories to fill it. "It was my mother's," he explained. "One of the few things I brought from Kentucky. I thought maybe someday you might put a picture of Emma in it." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "It's beautiful. But I can't accept something so precious. Please. I want you to have it." His fingers brushed hers as he took the locket and moved behind her to fasten it around her neck. She could feel his breath on her hair, the careful touch of his hands at her nape. When he came around to face her again, his eyes were dark with emotion. "It looks right on you," he said softly. Olivia touched the locket, feeling its weight against her skin. "I don't have anything for you. You've already given me more than you know, Olivia." That night, lying in bed listening to the wind whispering around the eaves, Olivia admitted to herself what she had been denying for weeks. She was falling in love with Ambrose Redfield, with his integrity, his kindness, his quiet strength. But could she trust these feelings? Or was she simply grateful to the man who had rescued her and Emma from a terrible fate? And even if her feelings were real, what of his? He had never spoken of love, never made any romantic overtures. His kindness might be just that kindness, born of his own loss and loneliness, not any special affection for her. January brought the bitter cold of a Colorado mountain winter. The ranch was often isolated by heavy snowfall, but inside the house was warm and snug. Emma celebrated her 6-month birthday by cutting her first tooth, a milestone that Ambrose marked by carving her a small wooden rattle. "My father made one like this for my niece," he explained as he sanded the edges smooth. "Family tradition." The word family hung between them, a reminder of all that was unspoken. One evening, as a blizzard howled outside, they sat before the fire after Emma was asleep. Ambrose had been quiet all day, preoccupied with something he wouldn't share. Finally, he set aside his book and turned to Olivia. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice unusually hesitant, "about the future, your future." Olivia's heart sank. Was he finally tiring of their arrangement? Did he want her and Emma to leave when spring came? "You've been here almost 3 months now," he continued. "You've more than earned your keep. Come spring, you'll have choices to make." She set her sewing in her lap. "What sort of choices? You could go back east if you wanted, to Philadelphia. Maybe your family would welcome you now with Thomas gone." "They wouldn't," she said quietly. "They're not forgiving people," he nodded, as if her answer confirmed something. "You could stay in Colorado then, maybe in Denver. It's growing fast. There would be opportunities for a smart woman like you." "Are you asking me to leave?" "No." The word burst from him with unexpected force. He leaned forward, his expression intense. "No, Olivia, I'm trying to say badly that I want you to stay, not as my housekeeper or because of some debt you think you owe me, but because you want to." "As what then?" she asked, her heart pounding. Ambrose ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she'd come to recognize. "As my wife, if you could ever consider such a thing. As my partner in all ways." Olivia stared at him, unable to form words through the rush of emotion. "I know it hasn't been long," he continued into the silence. "I know your experience with marriage wasn't good, and I know how we met isn't exactly the stuff of romance. But I love you, Olivia. I love Emma too. I want to be a father to her, to give her my name, to give you both everything I have." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "Ambrose." He moved to kneel before her chair, taking her hands in his. "You don't have to answer now. Take all the time you need. If the answer is no, nothing changes. You both still have a home here for as long as you want it." She touched his face, this man who had saved her in more ways than he knew. "I don't need time," she whispered. "I love you too, I have for weeks now." His eyes widened with hope. "You'll marry me?" "Yes," she said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, I will." Ambrose pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that began gently but quickly deepened with months of unspoken longing. When they finally parted, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "I never thought I'd find this again," he murmured. "Never thought I'd want to." "Find what? Home. Not just a place, but a feeling. You and Emma, you're my home now." They were married in February in the parlor of their ranch house. The circuit preacher happened through Golden during a break in the winter storms, and Ambrose sent Jed riding out at dawn to fetch him before he could move on. It was a simple ceremony. Silas and Jed stood as witnesses. Emma, now able to sit up on her own, watched wide-eyed from a basket decorated with ribbon. Olivia wore a new dress of deep blue wool that Ambrose had ordered from Denver, delivered by the mail coach just the week before. "You look beautiful," he whispered as she came down the stairs to join him. The preacher was brief but heartfelt in his service. When he pronounced them husband and wife, and Ambrose kissed her with gentle reverence before their small audience, Olivia felt a sense of rightness so profound it brought fresh tears to her eyes. That night, after Emma was settled in what was now the nursery adjoining their bedroom, Olivia came to her husband with both nervousness and anticipation. Her previous marriage had left her with little joy in physical intimacy. Thomas had been rough and demanding, caring nothing for her pleasure. But Ambrose was different in this as in all things. His touch was tender, his focus entirely on her comfort and happiness. He took his time, exploring and learning her body with a patience that transformed her understanding of what passion could be. "I'll never hurt you," he promised against her skin. "Never take from you, only give. Always." In his arms, Olivia discovered a depth of feeling she had never imagined possible. Their bodies spoke what words could not fully express: commitment, trust, belonging. When they lay together afterward, her head on his chest, his heartbeat strong beneath her ear, she knew without doubt that she was truly home. Spring came to the Colorado foothills in a riot of wildflowers and new growth. Emma, now 9 months old, was crawling everywhere, pulling herself up on furniture, babbling a constant stream of almost words. Her favorite seemed to be "Pa Pa," which made Ambrose's eyes suspiciously bright the first time he heard it. With the warmer weather came changes to the ranch. Ambrose hired 2 more hands to help with the expanding herd. He built a proper fence around a section of yard so Emma could play safely outdoors, and he surprised Olivia one morning by bringing home a milk cow. "Fresh milk for Emma," he explained as he showed Olivia how to milk the placid Jersey. "And butter for us. Maybe cheese too if you want to learn. My grandmother made cheese," she said, tentatively trying the milking technique. "She tried to teach me, but Mother said it wasn't a suitable skill for a proper Philadelphia lady." Ambrose chuckled. "Not much call for proper Philadelphia ladies out here, Mrs. Redfield. Just strong Colorado women who can turn their hand to anything." Mrs. Redfield. The name still gave Olivia a thrill every time she heard it. She had gone from abandoned daughter to desperate widow to auction property to beloved wife in less than a year. The journey seemed impossible, yet here she was, happier than she'd ever imagined possible. In May, they took their first trip together to Denver. The city was booming, filled with new construction and the energy of a place coming into its own. They stayed at a fine hotel, ate at restaurants, attended a theatrical performance. Ambrose bought Olivia a new hat with feathers and Emma a porcelain doll with real hair. "You spoil us," Olivia protested as he added books and sheet music for the piano to their purchases. "I've got 17 years of being a miser to make up for," he replied with a grin. "Besides, I like seeing you happy." On their last night in Denver, after Emma was asleep in the hotel's crib, Ambrose took Olivia's hands in his as they sat together by the window overlooking the city lights. "I've been thinking about the future again," he said, his expression serious but eyes warm with love. "Our future. What about it? I want to adopt Emma, legally, make her my daughter in name as well as heart." Emotion swelled in Olivia's throat. "You already do everything a father would do, I know, but I want it official. I want her to always know she's mine, that I chose her just like I chose you." "Then we'll do it," Olivia agreed, leaning forward to kiss him softly. "When we get home." Home they went, with the legal papers drawn up by a Denver lawyer. Emma Lancaster officially became Emma Redfield on her first birthday in July, a day they celebrated with a small party that included Jed and Sela's, the two new ranch hands, and several neighbors who'd become friends. As summer ripened toward fall again, marking a year since Olivia had first come to the ranch, she realized she'd been feeling unusually tired. Her dresses felt tighter around the waist, and certain smells in the kitchen suddenly turned her stomach. She recognized the signs from her pregnancy with Emma, but waited until she was certain before sharing the news with Ambrose. She told him on a September evening as they sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset while Emma played with wooden blocks at their feet. His reaction was everything she could have hoped for: joy, wonder, immediate concern for her health. "A baby," he breathed, placing a reverent hand on her still flat stomach. "Our baby. Due in April, I think." She covered his hand with hers. "Are you truly happy about this, Ambrose?" "It will mean more expense, more work." "I have never been happier," he assured her, gathering her close. "Never." As her pregnancy progressed, Ambrose was attentiveness itself. He insisted on hiring a girl from town to help with the housework and mind Emma when Olivia needed rest. He read every book on childbirth and infant care he could find, and even made a trip all the way to Denver in the dead of winter to consult with a real doctor about the best care for his wife. "You're worse than a mother hen," Olivia teased as he fussed over her swollen ankles one February evening. "Can't help it," he replied, not the least bit apologetic. "You and the children are my whole world." Emma, now 18 months old and talking in simple sentences, seemed to understand that something special was happening. She patted Olivia's growing belly and said "baby" with solemn importance. At night, she would climb into their bed and listen to Ambrose tell stories to the baby inside Mama's tummy. April arrived with gentle rains and warm breezes. Olivia felt enormous, ungainly, and increasingly uncomfortable. The baby was active, kicking and shifting constantly, especially at night when she wanted to sleep. "This one's going to be a handful," she told Ambrose as they lay in bed, his hands spread over the spot where their child was performing acrobatics. "Like his mother," he teased. "You think it's a boy? Maybe. Doesn't matter. Just healthy is all I care about." The labor began on a Tuesday morning while Ambrose was out checking on a new calf. Olivia was hanging laundry when the first pain gripped her, sharp enough to make her gasp. Emma, playing nearby with her doll, looked up in concern. "Mama hurt?" "No, sweetheart. The baby's just getting ready to come out and meet us." Olivia forced a smile through the fading contraction. "Let's go inside and wait for Papa." By the time Ambrose returned an hour later, the contractions were coming regularly. He sent Jed galloping for the midwife in Golden, then helped Olivia to their bedroom. "You're doing wonderfully," he assured her, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. "Just like you do everything." The midwife, Mrs. Tanner, arrived by mid-afternoon. She was a no-nonsense woman who had delivered most of the babies in the county for 30 years. She shooed Ambrose downstairs to mind Emma and set about preparing the room for birth. Strong contractions, she noted approvingly after examining Olivia. Good position, too. This isn't your first, so it should go easier. But it didn't. As evening deepened into night, Olivia's labor intensified without progressing. The pain became overwhelming, her strength flagging with each futile push. Through a haze of agony, she heard Mrs. Tanner's worried murmurs, felt the midwife's increasingly urgent examinations. "The baby's turned wrong," the older woman finally said. "I need to try to move it." What followed was the worst pain Olivia had ever experienced. She screamed, unable to help herself, and heard Ambrose's frantic voice from the hallway where he'd been pacing for hours. "What's happening?" "Olivia," Mrs. Tanner called him in, her face grave. "Mr. Redfield, your wife is in trouble. The baby won't turn. I've done all I can." Ambrose went white as he looked at Olivia, drenched in sweat and barely conscious. "What can be done? There's a doctor in Boulder who might be able to help, but it's 15 miles and in her condition." "I'll take her," he said immediately. "I'll get the wagon ready." "Ambrose," Olivia whispered, gripping his hand with the last of her strength. "Emma, Jed will stay with her. Mrs. Tanner, too. I'm taking you to Boulder." The journey was a nightmare Olivia would never fully remember. Ambrose made a bed of blankets and hay in the back of the wagon, trying to cushion her from the worst of the jolts as they traveled through the night. He drove the horses harder than he ever had, praying aloud when he thought she couldn't hear. Dawn was breaking when they reached Boulder. The doctor, thankfully, was home and immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. He ushered them into his surgery, barking orders at his assistant. "The baby's in a transverse lie," he explained quickly to Ambrose. "Sideways. Can't be born that way. I need to turn it, but your wife is very weak. There are risks." "Save her," Ambrose said, his voice breaking. "If you have to choose, save my wife." Olivia, drifting in and out of consciousness, heard this and tried to protest. Their baby deserved a chance too. But darkness was pulling her down, away from pain, away from fear. She awoke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was or what had happened. Then the soreness in her body reminded her, and panic seized her heart. "The baby," she gasped, "is fine." Ambrose's voice came from beside her. He was sitting in a chair pulled close to the bed, his face haggard with exhaustion but alight with joy. "He's perfect, Olivia. 10 fingers, 10 toes, strong lungs too. A boy." Tears of relief flowed down her cheeks. Ambrose nodded, his own eyes damp. "A son, I thought I might lose you both." "Where is he?" "Right here." He stood and went to a small cradle by the window, returning with a tightly bundled infant. "Meet your son, Mrs. Redfield." The baby was tiny but perfect, with a shock of dark hair like his father's and eyes that, when they flickered open briefly, seemed to hold the same intense blue. "He looks like you," Olivia whispered, counting fingers and toes for herself. "Poor child," Ambrose joked, but his voice was thick with emotion. "What shall we call him?" They had discussed names before, but nothing had seemed quite right. Now, looking at this miracle who had nearly cost both their lives, Olivia knew. "James," she said. "After the man who saved you." "Who made all of this possible, really." Ambrose's face softened with memory and gratitude. "James Thomas Redfield. A good name. Thomas." She was surprised he would suggest her first husband's name. "He gave us Emma," Ambrose said simply. "Whatever else he did, I'm grateful for that." They stayed in Boulder for 2 weeks, until the doctor was satisfied that both Olivia and little James were strong enough to travel. The reunion with Emma back at the ranch was joyous. the little girl alternately fascinated and dubious about the new addition to the family. "Baby small," she pronounced, peering into the cradle. "He'll grow," Ambrose assured her, lifting her up so she could see better. "And you'll always be his big sister. That's a very important job." Summer unfolded around them, bringing long sunny days and short, star-filled nights. James thrived, gaining weight and strength. Emma took her role as big sister seriously, bringing her favorite toys to show him and patting his head carefully like Papa does. On the first anniversary of their wedding, Ambrose surprised Olivia with a gift, the deed to the ranch, amended to include her name alongside his. "It's as much yours as mine now," he said as she read the legal document with wonder. "Officially. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll grow old with me here," he suggested, pulling her close. "Say we'll watch our children run these fields and climb those mountains. Say this is just the beginning of our story, not the middle or the end." "It is just the beginning," she agreed, resting her head against his chest. "And I'll stay with you forever, Ambrose Redfield, just as you promised to keep me safe forever that first day." He kissed her then, tender and passionate at once. "Best promise I ever made, best one I ever kept." As twilight settled over the Colorado foothills, painting the distant mountains in shades of purple and gold, Olivia stood on the porch of their home, watching Ambrose swing Emma in circles on the lawn while James slept peacefully in the cradle beside her. The scene before her was so far from where she'd been a year ago that it sometimes felt like a dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was her life now, a life built on an unlikely rescue, on second chances and brave choices, on love that had grown slowly but surely from the rocky soil of desperation into something strong and enduring. She touched the silver locket that still hung around her neck, now containing tiny portraits of both Emma and James, and silently thanked whatever fate or providence had led her to that auction block in Golden. From devastation had come deliverance. From bondage, freedom. From loneliness, a family bound not by obligation but by the deepest love. And as the stars began to appear one by one in the darkening sky, Olivia Lancaster Redfield knew with absolute certainty that she was, at last, truly home. The years passed with the steady rhythm of seasons on the Colorado ranch. Emma grew from a toddling child into a spirited young girl with her mother's auburn hair and quick mind. James, sturdy and thoughtful like his father, was her constant shadow and occasional conspirator. When Olivia gave birth to their third child, a daughter they named Rebecca Martha. After both Ambrose's sister and his surrogate mother, the family felt beautifully complete. Life wasn't without its challenges. There were harsh winters that threatened the herd, summer droughts that tested their resources, the normal tensions and adjustments of any family. But through it all, Ambrose and Olivia faced each challenge together, their partnership only strengthening with time. The ranch prospered under their joint stewardship. Ambrose's talent for horse training brought buyers from as far away as California and Texas. Olivia, drawing on her Philadelphia education, kept meticulous books and eventually helped establish the first proper school in their growing community. Emma, at 16, was courted by the son of a neighboring rancher, much to Ambrose's dismay and Olivia's amusement. James showed his father's affinity for horses and his mother's love of books in equal measure. Little Becca, with her father's blue eyes and her aunt's determination, announced at age 5 that she intended to be a doctor, after helping birth a foal in the barn. On the 10th anniversary of the day Ambrose had first brought Olivia to the ranch, they sat together on the porch swing, watching the sunset as they had countless times before. Their children played a noisy game of tag in the yard, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. "Do you ever think about that day?" Olivia asked, her head resting on her husband's shoulder. "The auction," Ambrose's arm tightened around her. "Sometimes. Mostly I think about how close I came to not being there. I almost didn't go to town that day." "What made you go?" he chuckled softly. "Ran out of coffee. Figured Becca would haunt me if I let the kitchen go bare." Olivia smiled, imagining the sister-in-law she'd never met but had come to know through Ambrose's stories. "Then I owe my happiness to your coffee habit and Rebecca's ghost. And I owe mine to whatever courage kept you standing on that platform, holding Emma close, refusing to break even when everything was broken around you." She twisted to look up at his face, still handsome though now lined with the evidence of both laughter and worry. "We saved each other, I think." "We did," he agreed, lowering his lips to hers in a kiss that, even after a decade together, still held the power to make her heart race. "And we keep doing it, every day." As darkness settled fully over the ranch and the children were called in for supper, Olivia paused in the doorway, watching as Ambrose helped James light the lamps, as Emma set the table with careful precision, as little Becca climbed into her father's chair to wait for him. This family, this home, this love all had begun with the worst day of her life and a promise made by a stranger with kind eyes. "I'll keep you both safe forever," he had said, and he had. They had, together,